This is Blackmagic's new DaVinci Resolve Micro Color Panel. It's smaller, lighter, wireless, and has new features that you won't even find on Blackmagic's mini panel. It also has this interestingly shaped slot. Yes, that's for an iPad. This is our first look. We'll deal with the new features shortly. First, for those already familiar with Blackmagic's color grading panels, let's see what's similar. It's most similar to the original micro panel. It has the same basic layout and functionality, the same 3 trackballs and rings, the same 12 resettable knobs, transport controls are on the right, and finally, the assorted buttons that were in the top right of the original micro panel are now distributed across the top and left-hand side, give or take. This is where things start to depart. Excluding the reset controls, the previous panel had 18 buttons. The new panel has 37. That's more than double. Additionally, thanks to 2 shift keys, each button has up to 3 functions associated with it. So, it's time to talk about what's new. Blackmagic has packed so much functionality into this panel. We will break its new features down into 5 categories: connectivity, iPad compatibility, new controls, shift keys, rings, and trackballs. So first, connectivity. Like before, you can connect the panel using a USB-C cable or USB-A to USB-C cable. It's so frictionless to use it this way as no installation is required. But here's where it gets exciting. Blackmagic have added an internal battery and Bluetooth connectivity. Not only does this mean you could use it wirelessly with your desktop or laptop computer, but it's opened the way to use this panel with Resolve on iPad. Hit the button on the back to make the panel discoverable, and head to your Bluetooth preferences to pair it with your iPad, Mac OS, or Windows computer. Once that's done, the wireless experience is just as smooth as the wired experience. Moving on, iPad compatibility. iPad Resolve has excellent feature parity with the desktop version of Resolve. The same is true of the panel. To talk about how the panel works with the desktop version of Resolve is to talk about how it works with an iPad. It's the same experience. The slot clearly shows Blackmagic has iPad users in mind, but this doesn't feel like an iPad-only device. It's equally at home in front of a laptop or desktop computer. We appreciate the design, how the slot is so subtle that it doesn't call attention to itself when an iPad is not present. We've tested the slot with 2 iPads, a 12.9-inch Pro M2 and an Air M1. It's stable on a desk, which is super important when working with a touchscreen. It needs to be able to resist the jabs to the top of the screen. To demonstrate stability for reference, here's a little tip test with a typical iPad trifold case, which isn't so great. And then the panel with a 12.9-inch Pro, and then an Air. It does really well. Also, notice the shape in the center of the slot. It's wider so you can use your finger to perform swipe gestures, although your experience might vary depending on the size of your fingers. Just so you know, it's just a stand. It doesn't connect to the iPad, so if you carry your iPad in a case that's difficult to remove or you just don't want to remove it, the iPad doesn't need to be placed in the slot. We'll talk more about the iPad experience with this panel later. For now, let's talk about the new controls. Blackmagic has rounded out the functions that can be accessed on this panel without using a mouse or keyboard to the point where you can legitimately color grade without your hands having to leave the panel. This is obviously important if you're using an iPad. For example, previously you could capture and view stills, but you couldn't change the wipe in your viewer. You'd have to use a mouse or keyboard. Or you can navigate between existing nodes, but you couldn't make a new node. That meant there's previously no choice but to work with a mix of panel, keyboard, and mouse. Now, we not only have keys for wiping the still in the viewer or making new nodes, but also keys for creating windows, making keyframes, tracking windows, building qualifications, toggling highlight mode, and much more. New buttons like copy and paste improve the grading experience for users without a keyboard, for example, people working on an iPad. But they are equally as useful for a desktop user as moving from panel to a keyboard affects efficiency. There's new keys for navigating keyframes. They've been grouped with the transport controls, as have the previous and next still buttons. It feels intuitive to have all the navigation keys in the same place. But wait, there's more. Let's talk about the shift keys. Most of these keys have 3 functions. That's because there are 3 different ways to use each key. Push the key by itself, hold shift up and push the key, hold shift down and push the key. Each key only has its primary function labeled. You'll need to use the reference manual to learn their additional functions, but some of them are pretty intuitive. For example, copy copies the entire clip's grade, shift up and copy copies the selected node. Now, you might have noticed the new panel only has 1 reset control for each ring trackball combo. The original panel had 3 reset buttons for each. For us, those 9 dedicated buttons always felt a little over the top. On the new panel, want to guess how you reset just the RGB or just the level adjustments? Shift up and reset does RGB, shift down does levels. Here's one more example. The node button adds a serial node, shift up plus the node button adds a parallel node, and shift down adds a layer node. These shift assignments are so intuitive, and even if other shift assignments aren't as obvious, they're still fairly easy to discover. If you don't want to read the manual, just start stabbing at buttons. But wait, it gets even better. Let's talk about the ring and trackballs. In previous panels, the ring and trackballs could only be used to control the primary wheels, log wheels, offset, and color temperature. You're gonna love this change. Want to adjust your image wipe? Hold down on wipe still and rotate the gain ring. Or how about this? Add a window with the Add Window button, then hold Shift up and move the gain ring to change its size. Use the lift ring while still holding Shift up to change its softness, and then use the gain trackball to position it. Here's another cool thing you can do. Hold Shift down and use the trackballs and rings to adjust the image input sizing. What about building a qualifier, adding a magic mask, or picking a color warp or control point? Hit the cursor button, and now the gain trackball works as a color picker. Position it over the part of the image you'd like to sample, and hit select. There's also a user button. We understand that in a future update, you'll be able to assign up to 3 keyboard hotkeys to this function, because remember, there's shift up and shift down modifiers. And finally, as with the other panels, certain buttons toggle different modes on and off, like the offset control. Those buttons change color to indicate their status. Before we continue, we have something special to tell you. If you're considering making the move to DaVinci Resolve, there's never been a better time. We're thrilled to launch our brand new course, DaVinci Resolve for Editors. It's primarily aimed at those who already have experience in programs like Premiere Pro, but are looking to transition to Resolve. But if you are a frequent viewer of our channel, you know that whenever we tackle a topic, we do it thoroughly in a manner that doesn't leave anyone behind. Therefore, we think you'll love this course, even if you're new to editing. YouTube is full of amazing trainers and incredible videos. But when you're piecing together your education 10 minutes at a time, you don't know what you're missing, and it's easy to get lost. Let us be your guide. We get straight into Resolve, demonstrating features and workflows as we build out a short documentary together. There's 9 hours of training spread over 52 lessons. It covers the media, edit, color, fairlight, and deliver page. And the course comes with 2 hours of practice media for you to follow along as you learn. We're offering a launch discount for a limited time. Follow the link in the description to learn more. Enjoy the rest of the video, and thanks for listening. What's it like to use? We'll deal with iPad-specific parts of the experience first. The panel makes grading on such limited screen real estate a lot nicer, as you don't need to constantly have your hands obscuring the screen. We love popping in and out of full screen mode while grading or viewing with the viewer button. The inclusion of an iPad stand is excellent. We like the distance and the angle, but depending on what kind of case you keep your iPad in, your usage will vary. But we have to say, the power, size, and convenience of the iPad screen and M-series processor combined with Resolve is frankly amazing. Moving on, let's talk about the overall experience of using this panel. But first, a comment about working with all panels in general. They won't make you a better colorist, but they might make you a quicker colorist. For example, adding a new window with a mouse would typically require 3 clicks. With the panel, it's 1 click. When you have hundreds of shots to grade, a panel streamlines the process. This panel is small enough and light enough to carry it in a bag, but not so small that it's uncomfortable to use. Controls are close enough that you can use it one-handedly, and also far enough apart that two hands fit comfortably. A thought that crossed our minds. Blackmagic could have added labels to each button to show its shift functions, but we're really pleased they didn't. It would have overwhelmed the panel with text that's difficult to read, and it's completely unnecessary after you've developed some muscle memory. I'm using the gear wrap to protect mine whilst in transit. Here's 5 of our favorite features. These are small things, but they make a difference. Number 1, the wipe still feature is genius. Makes match grading a breeze because each shot usually needs the wipe to be repositioned. 2, copy and paste is such a great addition to the panel. We've got our left hand on copy and paste, right hand on previous clip and next clip. It's easy to move grades around a short timeline. 3, the viewer button makes it painless to jump in and out of a full screen viewer. 4, we love all of the functions that use the rings and trackballs, like the cursor or window tools. And finally, 5, the fact that it's wireless makes it easy to switch your desk between different modes, writing emails, editing, and color grading. Let's compare it to Blackmagic's other panels. The original micro and mini panels all share the same trackball and ring mechanism. The rings on those panels are made of metal. The new micro panels' rings and trackballs are slightly smaller and lighter. The rings are a composite plastic, but this is not a negative. We don't prescribe to the notion that metal is premium and plastic is cheap. They're just different materials. These new trackballs and rings are fit for purpose and feel just fine. The rings and trackballs can still be removed for cleaning. Also, note the size and quality of this bearing that gives the rings their smooth feel. In terms of function, the new micro panel is a big improvement over the original panel. It's not as capable as the mini, but its upgrades narrow the gap. They can do similar things, but slightly differently. For example, as discussed, the new micro can create and adjust windows. You can do that on the mini, but instead of using the wheels and trackballs, it's accomplished with the soft dials and keys around its 2 screens. There's a whole bunch that the mini can do though that the new micro definitely cannot. For example, those screens give you full control over things like your HSL qualifiers. They also make it easier to discover features thanks to the helpful on-screen labels. Now, the heavier trackballs and rings on the original micro, mini, and advanced are nicer to use. They have more weight when you push them around, which in a way helps you to make better adjustments. For example, a light touch is less likely to result in an undesired slip because the trackball offers more initial resistance to movement. However, despite being lighter, the new micro's trackballs and rings still have inertia once they get moving, so you can flick them and they won't stop the moment you lift your hand. In this regard, they're very similar to the existing micro. The knobs and buttons feel great. They provide the same functionality as the original micro and mini panels, but are physically different. They are shorter, which makes them a little less ergonomic, but it's an acceptable compromise to make for the sake of portability. Imagine how difficult it would be to reach your iPad screen with huge dials in the way. The buttons are also different, not as soft as the existing micro and mini, but no less pleasant to use. And talking about the heft of the entire unit, well, you could use the old micro and mini for things like demolition. They're heavy, they're very solid. The new micro might not work as well for construction. FAQ time. Can you use it on your lap? Yes. Naturally, it's not as stable though as being on a desk, but it's good enough. Can it be used on other pages in Resolve? Yes, but the only buttons that will work on other pages are the basic transport controls. It doesn't replace devices like the speed editor. Can it be used to control other software? No, it cannot. It's Resolve only. Will it make me look cooler when coloring? Potentially. Has the original micro panel been discontinued? No, it has not. It is still available for those who prefer the larger and heavier rings and trackballs. Is there anything we don't like? No, not really. It's hard to reasonably criticize a product that offers this much value. If anything, all these extra button, ring, and trackball features have given us ideas for additional functionality. We'd love it if the rings could move the playhead, perhaps if you held down on the stop-start button and moved the gain ring. Perhaps some user-assignable knobs or more user-assignable buttons too, with built-in screens similar to a Stream Deck so you can change their labels. But no doubt that would increase the cost of this panel, making it less accessible, and there's beauty in function in this device's simplicity. More isn't always better. Finally, after using this panel, we'd love to see an update to the speed editor that mirrors elements of this panel's design. This panel is an easy recommendation for DaVinci Resolve users looking to buy their first color panel. Or if you already have a panel and are looking for something to take on the road or on set, you'll love how familiar this feels, and in all likelihood, you'll start wanting to see some of this panel's features implemented on your other panels. The new DaVinci Resolve microcolor panel from Blackmagic Design is available right now. Price and details are in the description below. Blackmagic Resolve 19 is also out, and if you've not yet watched our coverage of its amazing new features, there's links on screen and down in the description. I hope you found this video helpful. Please give it a like if you did, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Thanks for watching.